Guys, welcome back to another video. This is Math Stats, and we are going to look at one-to-one and inverse function. Now, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and that bell so you can be alert when I post a new video. Now, let's jump right into it. So, one-to-one. What is one-to-one? So, one-to-one. So basically, one-to-one is written like this, right? One-to-one. So one-to-one function basically means it's usually used for a graph, right? So basically, when you have a graph, if it is one-to-one, is only if when you have an horizontal line, it does not intersect the graph more than one time. So for instance, let's say you have this graph right here, or this Cartesian, and what you want to do is if you graph a function onto it, right, you want to put a horizontal line like this or anywhere, either here or here or here. If the function, let's say you graph and it goes like this, if the horizontal line touches the graph at more than 1 point, so 2 points, that means it is not a one-to-one function. That function you just graphed is not a one-to-one function, because a one-to-one function means for each x there is only one y, and there's only one y for each x. So you're gonna have, let's say here, let's say this is 4 and this is 4, then you have two y's, or you have one number for y and two x's. So that is not a one-to-one function. So that's what a one-to-one function means. There has to be only one x for one y's. You cannot have two different x's for one y. That is not a one-to-one function. Now, how about inverse function? So for the inverse function, so a function has an inverse if and only if it is a one-to-one function. So one-to-one function equals it has an inverse function. All right. So if a function has an inverse function if and only if it is a one-to-one function. So if it is not a one-to-one function, it does not have an inverse function. Now, how do you write inverse function? Well, the composition of an inverse function basically is f. If f is the function, then the inverse. So let me actually put it that way instead. The inverse of f is f of -1. Okay. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, well, wouldn't f of -1 equal 1 over f? No, that is not the same thing whatsoever. All right, that is not what we are doing. This is totally different. This is not an exponent. This is the function. So the inverse of x is f of -1. Okay, it's f of -1. So, and then now what we can do is to know that if f and f of -1 are truly inverse, we would do something as follows. We would have to do a little proof. So we would have f of -1 of f of x, right? Which is called composite. Remember we saw that earlier when we had the f of g of x or f circle g of x? Well, for that one, f of -1 of f of x, if it equals to f of let's see, f of -1 of x, and it equals to x, that means they are indeed inverse. Alright? So you have two ways. Now, what happens if you have, instead of f, right? Let's say you don't have only f. What if they say, well, what if we have f of x, and then we have g of x of f, or h of f? How do we know if these two are actually inverse of each other? Well, you would do something like this. You would do f of g of x, and if that equals to g of f of x, then they are, and that equals to x, then they are basically inverses. So to find the inverse, basically what you want to do is you want to put each one into the other one. So you first put the g of x inside of f, and then you put the f of x inside of g to see if you get the same result. If you get the same result, then they are both inverse of each other. So guys, I'm going to stop it right here. This is your boy, Mastat. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you can be alert when I post a new video. And of course, you can donate to my Cash App, PayPal, and Zelle. They are all in the description down below. Hope to see you guys again. Until then, Mastat out.